Hello. Hey, it is amazing to be here again. Isn't Agile on the beach one of the happiest times of the year? I get to see all my friends, and then I get to go to the beach, and I get to go to really terrible clubs. And last year there was a man dancing in a really beautiful red vinyl jacket, and he looked like something out of Twin Peaks. It was amazing. I love it here. It makes me so happy. So, my name is Gwen Diagram, and you can tweet me at Gwen Diagram. And I'm now the lead tester at Monzo, which is really amazing. But I was previously at Sky. So a little bit about me. So I'm one of the organizers of the Leeds Testing Atelier, which is a one-day free punk rock conference up in Leeds. And we have it at a little co-working, well, not a co-working space. It's a workers' co-op, which is really queer-friendly, and it's kind of very anarchist and very messy, and it's really nice. And we host people speaking about testing in general, but talking about testing databases, unit testing databases and stuff like that. Apart from that, I live in Ilkley, in a little town where I go for walks on the moor, and I want a dog, but I don't have a dog, so one day, hopefully I will have a dog. And yeah, I like dinosaurs and pigeons, lots of pigeons. So, as I said, I work at Monzo, and it's really amazing. I'm doing some really cool stuff there. It's one of the new challenger banks in the UK, if you're not from the UK and you haven't heard of it. And I've been there, I've been there about 4 months now. And yeah, I've been doing some really cool stuff that I'm really proud of. But I won't be talking about that today. So this is a story of how I brought awareness of security to teams at Sky. And Sky, if you're not from the UK again, it's a telecommunications company. It's in the UK and it's in a little bit of Europe, so it's in Germany and Italy as well. So before I started running these security testing workshops, I failed at running a few different workshops. But, failing, well, it's totally okay because we get to learn some really cool stuff so you don't fail quite as hard next time. So, at the time, when I first started doing all of this, I'd really recently been promoted to the principal test engineer. So, question is, what exactly does a principal test engineer do? I had exactly the same question. I was the first principal test engineer that Sky had ever had. And it was for one really, really large part of the business. And I was told, the rest of the business, just don't worry about it. You focus on this part, the rest, don't worry. So I had so much freedom. So much freedom, it was ridiculous. It's been really interesting changing jobs, actually, to Monzo, where people actually have expectations of me. At Sky, no one had any expectations at all. I'd just stand up there and be like, I've had an idea. They'd be like, that's brilliant, nice work. And so, yeah, I've gone back to reality where it's like, I've got an idea. They're like, well, how are you going to actually do that? I'm like, well, I've got an idea. Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's quite a change. But so I found out really early on that being principal test engineer, my role was not about testing at all. My role was about quality. And being a principal test engineer, I wasn't in a tribe working with people, and so absolutely no one had to do anything that I suggested. If I wanted to make a difference, I had to make it really, really interesting so people would pay any attention to what I was saying. Otherwise, I was just standing over to the side, arm waving, being like, woo, isn't this exciting? So I tried a few different things to try and get people interested in what I deemed as really exciting. So first off, I ran these exploratory testing workshops. So these were pretty successful at the time. So to do this, I actually sat there and worked with one of the test managers. I worked really closely with her. She was really receptive and amazing. And I set all these different little workshops up for her team. And part of that, I set them at a specific time, and she made sure that people came. She herded them along and she was like, come on, it's exploratory testing workshop time. You've got to come to this. And people, they came, but how much they gave a shit was like a bit varying. Some people were like, oh my God, I had no idea that I could use mnemonics to test. And some people were just like, just give me a test script, go away. So I was doing these, and I'd done one, and one was set up. But then the next one I'd set up actually at where I held the test atelier. And so it was outside of the office. And so I'd organized all of this stuff. But they'd actually cancelled the workshop. Like, it gets to the workshop time. I'm like, all right, we on for this? They were like, no, we've got to release. We've got so much regression testing to do. We can't possibly go to it. Which, that's a really massive anti-pattern. If you can't learn because you're too busy doing regression testing, there is a massive problem. But it was one that ran really deep. It was part of the culture there. Everyone get on board to do this and screw learning. So with the form of delivery that we were doing at Sky, these cancellations, they were going to be really common. And that's really not how I want to run a set of workshops. Like empty seats, me sitting at the front being like, oh, I really wish that people came to this. So for one thing, people shouldn't be getting herded to this workshop and being told that they need to learn about exploratory testing or Agile or any of these things. People, they should choose to come, and they should be damn interested. So I tried a few other things at the time. So I was really lucky enough to be asked to organize one of the all hands at Sky, which meant that everyone in my little collective, because it was bigger than tribes, would come along and, they'd be forced to come along. So I was like, I've got everyone in this tribe here. This is amazing. So instead of just inviting a small subset of people, I can invite absolutely everyone to my workshop. Because there was so much that we could improve at Sky, I set the theme as Kaizen, so continuous improvement, so we could reflect on what we were doing and try and improve. I was really excited about this. I ran a bunch of drop-in Kaizen workshops, so I got loads of stuff made for it as well. I worked with one of the designers to get these stickers made because I was like, you know what people love? People love stickers. Like, they can put them on their laptop, and everyone can think about continuous improvement. And I made these little flyers as well, because I'm from the music scene. How do you get people to come to your gig? You give them flyers, and that works. But the workshops were fucking empty. And I'd set up 8 of these workshops. I'd set up 2 a day over like a week, except that's 4 days, so almost a week. Which meant that I wrote 8 of these workshops. I worked pretty hard on writing these workshops. And then I'd sit by myself in the canteen at Sky, and I'd wait for people to turn up. And most of the time, only one person, this really engaged Scrum Master, would turn up to my Kaizen workshop. The same person every single time. So, I really liked Alan. He was really cool. But if I wanted to change stuff, and I wanted some continuous improvement at Sky, and I wanted to reflect on what we were doing and make things better, I needed more than Alan. So that was a complete failure, and it hurt. It was a lot of work for, a lot of pain. I was really sad. But I learned a lot about what not to actually do. So I had a think, and I was like, what can I actually do here that's going to make a massive difference in quality? Because it wasn't testing I was interested in, it was quality. And happiness, because there were people there that weren't that happy, and I wanted people to be happy, because if you want to build awesome software, you need happy people that actually give a shit about stuff. So At the time, security wasn't really spoken about at Sky, like at all. We had these 4 security experts that sat in a glass box in another part of the business, one of the parts of the business that wasn't my problem. And it was really interesting because they'd hired them all from Lithuania. And I used to work at Call Credit, which has changed to TransUnion. And we used to work with Lithuanians there, and it was amazing because they were so much smarter than me, especially all the women, and it was amazing. But I didn't really speak to these people in the glass box because they mostly spoke Lithuanian in their glass box. So these security people couldn't share any of their knowledge, really. So inside their little glass box, they might have been thriving at security. But the rest of the business, because we couldn't really communicate with them because of all these blockages put up in place, basically, like a glass box, a different language. Yeah, security on the outside was a total desert. So we did have penetration testing at Sky, but it wasn't something that the teams got involved with. What would happen was the Scrum Masters would organize penetration testing at the end every 6 months, and then, didn't really come back to the teams except for on an Excel spreadsheet with all the risks. How dull. So I thought, maybe security testing is something that people here would actually like to learn. Like, maybe people would be interested in that. But I'm a tester. I don't know anything about security. So I don't know how I'm going to teach this to people. But, whatever. But I had been to a couple of workshops at conferences like this. So one of my mates, Dan Billing, had run a workshop at a conference I go to called Test Bash. And everything that he did in that workshop, it was entirely open source material. So, introducing Juice Shop. Has anyone here actually used Juice Shop? Hey, brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Juice Shop. It's one of the things that makes me really happy. It's free and open source, which when you're choosing stuff for your business, that's probably it's one of the top things that helps me decide whether I want to use something. It's really, really easy to install. So you can install it using Docker, you can install it straight from binary, you can install it on Heroku, and it's easy. It's self-contained, so it won't screw up other things on your machine. It's self-healing, which is pretty beautiful. And it's got gamification, which is how you get people interested in anything. Make it a game. So this seemed like a really fun, easy thing to run. Basically, Juice Shop is a capture the flag kind of activity. And it was something that I thought people would probably be interested in. But how would I actually know if people would be interested? Because I had been bitten by this before. So for this, I decided to involve everyone at Sky Leads, not just my part of the company, because what's the point of just teaching one section when you can teach everyone? And this time, I actually learnt to gauge interest first. So when you're doing something like this, consider how people communicate and use the most common method. So at work, you're not organizing DIY punk gigs. People do not do things by flyer. They do things by Slack. So I advertised my ideas on Slack this time. And I used emojis. So I said emoji if you're interested. I always use the party wizard emoji because the party wizard emoji is very exciting. And people will get excited about being yeah, I'm interested, so I can use this emoji. And it's part of the whole psychology around it, make your shit exciting. And this was really popular this time. I had over 40 emoji responses on Slack from all over Leeds that actually wanted to do this workshop. So what I did was I set up 2 of these workshops because 40 people for a workshop, that's a bit much. So I set up 2 of these workshops and I ordered in stickers because, again, I didn't learn from last time. People don't react, people aren't purely driven by stickers. It's not like food. But people still like stickers. And I got some food in, and we held this 4-hour workshop. So my department, we were pretty broke. Like, we were dead broke. We didn't have any money at all for food. So what I did was I spoke to the head of the other part of the business, and he had lots of money. And so I was like, I will train your people in security if you give me some money for food. And he's like, yeah, fine, have some money. And it was like, it wasn't even that much. It was ridiculous. So no matter how good your workshop is, people will not come if there is not food, because they can go somewhere else and get food. So all of that, and I still was not a security expert. Like, I really felt like I barely knew anything about security at all, because I'm not, but I knew where to find stuff out, which is the important thing. From going to conferences, just like this one, that's meant to be a mirror. Like, you can't use a mirror on slides, that doesn't work, so just imagine that's a mirror. But the workshops were a total success this time. So what was really beautiful was people were actually working on Juice Shop, not just in the workshop, but outside of work as well. And I set up Slack groups, so people that were in each individual workshop, they could start sharing their solutions, because some of them are really tricky, and it's like, man, I found out how to do this is amazing. And one person was really, really excited, and he even took it back to run within their tribe. And I had other principals wanting me to run it within their tribe as well, because they were like, this is amazing, my identity team really, really needs you to run this workshop. I was like, nah, man. Because this wasn't just about security. I thought that we could actually build a community. And with this being a success, like people actually turning up and being really excited, I thought we could take this a lot further and change some of the culture. So I booted up the security guild, and I asked for other organizers, because there wasn't a security guild, because there was just the 4 people in the glass box. Don't try and run a community alone if you start something up. Like, it's just not going to work that well. There's probably other people that know a lot more about some of the stuff that you're doing, for one thing. And in my case, there were 2 security experts that were really, really excited, and they wanted to help. Because if you speak to security, this is a massive part of their problem, how to get people actually interested in security, and it feels like they're shouting into the ether a lot of the time. So they were dead keen on this. And they could actually teach me how to do this, because I had no idea, so I could learn from them. So I made the security guild organizing thing as open as possible. Like, anyone could join. It's just like, hey, who wants to help me organize this? Come and help. Organizers can come from absolutely anywhere, and they will have skills that you had no idea about. In this case, we had a really recent graduate, so he was about 22 or something like that. And he ended up leading a couple of the technical, he ended up leading the entire technical space. Like, we were using OWASP and figuring out how to use that, and he was really keen. And he ran some workshops for the first time as well. So, how to set up an organizing team for success. Sort out regular catch-ups, and when people are like, oh, I can't come today, just do it without them anyway. Make sure that you keep to that schedule, otherwise it will lose momentum. Set some objectives to take away as well for the team, and encourage everyone to learn as well. Like, be like, oh, we don't know how to do this. Who wants to learn? Like, and yeah, hand it out to people. And praise people when they totally smash something, which is going to be pretty often because everyone's awesome. So, as an organizing team, we set up some objectives for the guild itself, for people that were coming to the security workshops. So, we wanted all of our attendees to get a basic learning of web security. And we wanted them to be able to manually explore an application for security vulnerabilities as well. And we wanted them to be able to use tool-assisted techniques to explore an application for security vulnerability. So we're talking about tools such as Burp or OWASP and things like that, being able to actually use those tools to find better vulnerabilities. And we wanted them to actually be able to read the OWASP logs to scan for vulnerabilities. So these logs are really interesting because they will tell you a lot, but there is a lot of them, and they will tell you a lot of junk as well. So being able to read them and identify what's useful is really good, and it's a great skill for your developers and testers and everyone to have. And we wanted them to be able to filter these logs so that they could integrate it into their CI pipelines, which as a tester, I'm really into automation, and I don't want to do this all the time. So I wanted it in the CI pipeline so we could identify security issues earlier than when the penetration testers come in 6 months later, and then we have to sit down with a boring Excel document listing all the risks. And yeah, integrate it into their pipelines. So then it was time for us to actually learn how we were going to teach this stuff, because I didn't know, but I could teach people. The security people knew, but they couldn't really teach people. So we merged our, skills. So I started researching how I was going to actually teach this stuff. And so I watched this talk by Bill Matthews, who's a tester, and that was cool, and I reached out to him, and I just started tweeting about it in general, like, I'm learning about this stuff, isn't it exciting? I'm like, we're all going to be doing this at Sky. And the Twitterverse told me about a really cool game that you can run within Teams to identify security issues. And they actually helped me out with a copy. So this was really funny. Marcus works at Microsoft, and he'd cleaned out like one of the cupboards at Microsoft, and he had these spare elevation of privilege games. And so he messaged me, and I went to a service station on a cold winter's night and met him and picked up one of these games. Well, a couple of these games, actually. So that was really cool. People outside started contacting me. That was nice. And I started getting to know more. And news started to spread about this security guild as well. Not just outside, but actually inside Sky, which was really nice. So in the UK, Sky has 3 different tech hubs. We've got the Leeds one, which I was at, and then we've got London as well, and we've got Scotland, so Glasgow. No, not Glasgow, Livingston, yeah. And the people there who were the security experts, they heard about what we were doing, and they were like, holy shit, how are you doing this? And they came down to see us. The dude from Livingston came, and he was so excited, and I met one of the head of security from London. He came up to Leeds, and he wanted to meet with me like the other week to talk about it as well. So how to actually teach people security and have them voluntarily interested. So I've never used this before, so I don't know how to do it. Nah. But the dude with the white hair, he was the dude from Livingston, and he was just like, woo, this is the best thing ever. So how to do it. Set goals. And use a common application. So the thing with me involving everyone was we had applications running from like just API-based to mobile ones to web-based and everything. So I used a common application that we could practice on, which was the OWASP Juice Shop, which people had already had experience in looking at. So that was pretty handy. And teach people Stride as well. Mnemonics are really helpful. People will be able to remember them while they're doing stuff in their day-to-day work. So Stride is spoofing, so pretending that you're someone you're not. Tampering, so messing with the logs or something. Repudiation, so this one is my favorite because it talks about going onto a system and maybe rewriting the logs. It's changing history, which I think is absolutely beautiful. And something cool to learn about. Information disclosure, so, Facebook's favorite. Denial of service, so lolsec and all of that, their favorite, those hackers from, can you believe that was 2012 ago? I used to love lolsec so much. They were doing really interesting, crazy stuff, and they'd managed to get into the news. It was brilliant. And elevation of privilege, so logging on as a normal user and elevating yourself to admin or something like that, something similar. So in all of these workshops, we taught people how to threat model as well, so they could start thinking about security threats early, which was really cool. I wanted to start getting the business analysts and general architecture people more interested in this in the future, so we could start getting this stuff really, really early, because that would have been awesome. And use data flow models to identify where to test and what kind of security issues can come out of that. And use personas. The personas were really good. So to go with the elevation of privilege game, there's a book by Microsoft called Threat Modeling, and out of that they have a bunch of personas. And they talk about like a spy and a script kiddie and stuff like that. And grab that and talk about how those different personas might want to mess with your application and what they would get out of it and how they would attack it, to give you an idea of who are the people that are going to start attacking your application. And play games as well, because, again, everyone loves games, and it means that people can win, and everyone likes a winner. So elevation of privilege, that was one that I thought was really cool, but there's a whole host of different card games for security. Security people have been trying to push this for ages. So when you start looking online, there's a whole host, but elevation of privilege is really easy to get. And get technical and use tools, because if you want developers or anyone technical interested, using tools is the best way to get there. So yeah, we used OWASP, which worked. We chose OWASP because it had a better command line interface than Burp, which meant that we were going to be able to integrate it into our pipeline easier. And let the guild members have a say in where they want to go as well. So this is like one of the titles of one of my workshops, and down the bottom it says you. It's not me running this, you are running this, you decide where to go, and yeah, that was helpful. Because security should not be thought of as something that you work on last within building software. Like, you should be thinking about this stuff as early as possible. And it's really funny, actually, because there's a dude that I know called Jay Harris, and I met him at a conference a while ago. And he's a security dude, and he was telling me all of this. And at the time, I was like, shut up, Jay, because we have so much other stuff to worry about. Like, we can't think of this as well. I'm a tester, so I need to know about automation. I need to know about performance. I don't have time to think about security. But I was wrong. We do, and we should. The earlier you think of, the less work it is. With threat modeling, security can be considered when you're first actually architecting the system. So if you teach your BA, or your product owner, or whatever, whoever, you will have a more secure system because it will have been thought of first. And you can think of it when you're actually writing the code as well. So you can apply the stride stuff there, and you can apply all the mnemonics while you're just sitting there writing your code. And when you're doing all your automated checks as well. So in all the different levels, you can apply it. And just generally, all throughout the development cycle, but only if you know how. So teach your teams about security, and hang out with people that can help you with that as well. Because security is for everyone. It's not just for the few people that are sitting in that glass box. They need your help, and security people need your help. Cool. Any questions? Oh, I should say, it was really interesting. So I did all this work, and we got to the end. So the last thing to work on before I left was the integration into CI. And a couple of months ago, I handed the guild off to one of the other principal engineers. And I said, I met with him a couple of months ago, and I was like, hey, have you got it in the CI yet? And they stopped doing it. And so, yeah, that was really interesting. You need someone to drive it as well. It was really sad that I did all this work and it didn't get in the CI in the end. Cool.